It is Market Insight, and it's a midweek edition of the program. Of course, on here, as you already know, well, if you didn't know, now you're about to find out. We bring you all the updates, as it were, as far as the markets are concerned, discuss issues that do concern the market and concern you as well. We make heads and tails of it all, the naira and kobo of it all, the fine print, the granular details, if you like, with regards to the markets, the economy, and all that it entails. So long as, you're able to account for what comes out of your wallet, or what comes out of your pocket, or what goes out of your bank account. Essentially, we're going to make that make some sense for you on Market Insight. I am yours truly, David Chiedu. And today on Market Insights, we are talking about the food services industry. Matter of fact, using that as a case study to talk about leveraging technology in order to stimulate some critical sectors in the country. But we're beaming the spotlight essentially on the food services. Now, I'd like to ask you a question, or well, a few questions actually. How do you like your meals served? I'll let that simmer for a little bit. Really, truly, how do you like your meals served? Homemade and indoors, outdoors, or perhaps are you the order-in type, whether it's at home or in the office? I know you're answering right now, even though I can't exactly hear the answer to the question. But then again, if you are for the latter, you have contributed in some small way, in your own small way, as a matter of fact, to grow businesses that contribute to the country's economy. Now, Nigeria's food service industry is booming with the tech-enabled startups essentially playing a crucial role in its growth. Now, one of the biggest shifts in Nigeria's food service industry has been the rise of quick service restaurants, which hold the largest market share by food service type, accounting for 50.01% as of last year, 2023. That's quite the number, if you ask me. Now, this dominance is attributed to the increasing demand for affordable and accessible food options. Key phrase, affordable and accessible food options. This is particularly, by the way, in busy urban cities or urban centers like the Lagos metropolis. Now, according to a survey by Modo Intelligence, the market is estimated to be at $10.01 billion in 2024, and it's also projected to reach $17.24 billion by the year 2029. That's somewhere south of 5 years from now. Now, it's also growing at a compound annual rate of 11.49%, which again, I reiterate, a very, very lucrative industry. Now, these startups are tapping into an increasingly consumer-first market that values speed, accessibility, and convenience, especially in the context of Nigeria's urban working population. Now, can we fully maximize this particular opportunity or this particular low-hanging fruit, as it were? The answer to that is a resounding yes. Of course we can. The how, on the other hand, becomes the puzzle that needs unraveling. So we're taking a stab at it this morning on the program Market Insight, and joining us to have this conversation is a development and African agri-food systems expert in the person of Mr. John Babadara. Good morning, Mr. Babadara. Can you hear me?
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning to you.
Now, we're going to start with, this program on a light note, a very light note. We love to eat. Nigerians love to eat. We love our food. In fact, we love a good meal. But the question is really, with all what we see, that's at play right now as far as the food industry is concerned, in a place like Lagos, we see a lot of people gravitating towards quick services, as you were, food or not. But since we're focusing on food at this point in time, and again, within the context of Lagos, you see that the concept of comfort comes to play or comes to bear here. But I'm going to ask you now, how do you see this working out for us? Do you perceive that there could be pitfalls, perhaps, stifling factors and all of that? How's it played out for us generally? And what are your thoughts?
Very good question. And then once again, thanks for having me. So I think this is one of the very best times for Nigerian tech ecosystem, and also for the food industry particularly, because when you look at all over the world, Nigeria has one of the youngest population, and then the adoption of digital technologies in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, has been unprecedented. And then due to this trend, these are unlock so many sectors, and then these are open up a new sub-sectors and a lot of economic opportunities happening from almost everywhere. And then the food industry has been one of the very great beneficiary of this trend. And then for me, I think that if we had even a better infrastructure environment, a better policy environment, by now the food tech industry would have added probably about $300 billion to our GDP. So which means that when the government talk about trying to push this economy to $1 trillion economy, the opportunity is really there, the potential is there. We have been underperforming for many years. And then thankfully for the young, vibrant tech ecosystem we have in this country, things are actually shaping up. The only challenge is just the gap in infrastructure, the gap in the policy environment for the food tech industry and generally the entire tech industry to really take off as it should be.
Now, we have 60% of our population, spending our money on food. Now, as I said earlier, we do like our food, and I'm going to use a personal experience. When all of this shift or this move with people remotely ordering food and all of that started some years back, I was one of those who was the least enthusiastic about it. As a matter of fact, I'm very traditional. And by my nature, as a traditional man, I was one of the last people to catch the bug. But eventually, I caught the bug, going mobile, ordering food and all of that, which, for all intents and purposes, is convenient, if we're being very, very, very honest. Now, this particular market's fragmentation, and diversity, as you well know, has provided, for both startups and even established players to nick a slice of the cake, as it were. So how do we maximize this on a more broader scale, to provide opportunities for prospective startups in this climb, as far as Nigeria is concerned? And I'll tell you why, or one of the reasons why I asked that question. Today, like I mentioned earlier, harping on the key phrase, convenience and accessibility. The average Lagosian right now, and I use Lagos as an example because it's a busy city. It's a busy metropolis. You go through the motions of work, all of the hassle, and then you stay for hours on end in traffic, and you are knackered. You get home, you cannot or you don't want to, just not because you are not the cooking type, but because you're just completely out of sorts at that point in time. So you order in. So back to my question. With all of these at play and it being a perceptibly low-hanging fruit, how do we maximize this particular opportunity to create more, how do we maximize this particular, let me use the word opportunity, to create more space, so to use that word, for more prospective startups in this regard?
Well, thank you very much. So one of the things I've been doing in the last couple of years, about 2 years now, is to look at scalability challenges for the tech ecosystem in Nigeria, and I've been narrowing down particularly to agri-tech. Then the emerging lessons and insight from this research is quite applicable to sectors even beyond agriculture. Then to answer your question, so one of the key findings we had from this research is that the tech ecosystem is being constrained by infrastructural gaps. So we have very huge infrastructural deficits in the space. When I talk about infrastructure, I'm talking about both the infrastructure gap and also the conventional infrastructure deficit. So we talk about creating more opportunity and then enabling the sector to be for more players to come in, particularly the smart, vibrant, young population that we have in this country. So we need to invest more in digital infrastructure like broadband. We need more expansion of broadband accessibility. This will not only increase speed, it will increase efficiencies of the services that are provided. And in addition, it will also drive down the cost of data service. For example, do you know that on the average cost of 5 gig data service, it's about 8% of the current minimum wage, national minimum wage. There is no way anybody should be spending 8% of their income on data service. So that is a key challenge. So both for developers, tech ecosystem, and even for users, because for you to be able to maximize the opportunity in the space, you want to get a digitally enabled phone, you want to get a data service, you want to be able to interact with the digital platforms. So the cost of data service is still very high. Cost of mobile phone is still quite very high. So there are lots of locations, particularly in our peri-urban and then, in our rural areas, who still don't have access to even the broadband service. So there has to be more investment in closing up the infrastructure gap, both the digital infrastructure and then the conventional infrastructure, talking about road logistics services. When we close this gap, we are directly and indirectly unlocking more opportunities and then incentivizing the players in the space. And then the more players you have in the space, you create an healthy competition, which drives down the cost of entry, and then you remove the barrier, then more players can come in and even create more innovations for this sector.
You speak about incentivizing. That is, for all intents and purposes, quite the broad term. As far as creating more infrastructure, because you did say that there is a dearth of it therein, that is in order. However, the flip side of that, which is where I'm going right now, incentivizing, in what forms would you say that these incentives should look like or should be, so that the average, wannabe food services entrepreneur or the average prospective food services business, can latch on to and be able to keep the lights on, as it were, or even to start off, as it were?
Thank you very much, David. Two quick issues here. First is that let me mention that as of the last data available to us, we realized that the tech ecosystem in Nigeria raised $1.2 billion. That's about 68% of the total value of fund raised in Africa. This is quite a lot in 2022. So, but however, as huge as that is, we can do 3x of that value if the enabling environment is highly conducive for players. So when I talk about incentivizing the space, I am saying that the energy cost for running any organization, it's too high for tech ecosystem players to be able to afford. For example, most European countries pay about 80% energy subsidy for their companies, their industries to survive and be able to produce goods and services that can compete with the rest of the world. So this is what I say. If the energy cost is, or the true energy cost, if it's too expensive for Europeans who are much more richer than Nigerians, who has far better GDP per capita, far higher than Nigerians, then the energy cost is too high for many tech ecosystem players to be able to survive. So that's one key issue here. Secondly, also is the fact that we as a nation, particularly from the government side, we have not invested enough into broadband expansion. Many of our communities, many of our cities are still stuck on 3G. So yes, many of us have 5G enabled phone, but we don't actually get 5G enabled services. We are stuck on 3G most of the time. The world has moved to 5G. The world is advancing at a rapid rate. We need to invest so much more in broadband expansion, because when we do this, what we are simply doing is we actually open up the space to onboard more people. Yes, in Nigeria today, internet access is in about 95% of the country, but only 33% of the country are currently actively connected on internet. So that is a huge gap that for us in the market. That is a huge market loss. We have about 65% of our population who are not actively engaged in the internet economy, or as we call it, in the digital economy. We need to bring these people on board. We need to allow them to be able to participate, because they are both in the exchange of goods and services, which can mean more taxes for the government, which means more product for the economy, which means more job created, which even means closing up the gaps in terms of innovation diffusion, which can have direct and indirect impact even on other sectors. Talk about health, talk about education, talk about even the fintech industry, where we have so many Nigerians, millions of Nigerians, about 40% of Nigerians who are still excluded from the financial sector. This shouldn't be in the 21st century. So closing these gaps are critical to unlocking the value, the true value of the Nigerian tech ecosystem.
Let's dwell on that lacuna for a little bit longer, that particular gap, as you were. You mentioned the figures, about 33% not being actively engaged or not being connected, as it were. Where do, well, first of all, before I ask that question, to break it down to very, very granular details or granular level, in what ways can we have this happening for us to shore up those gaps? Where does the digital economy, as it were, come into play to make that happen? You spoke about 5G, as it were, essentially expanding, what we have at play at the moment. So, help us make sense of all of this, please.
I was emphasizing the fact that point of correction. I meant to say that we currently have about 33% of our population actively connected on the digital economy ecosystem. So we are excluding about 65% who should be or who are not currently in the digital economy. So that is quite a 65%. So yes, exactly 65%. The time we have our commentaries dwelling on the 95% internet access across the country. That is the potential market, but in the real sense of today, as of today, only 33% are actively connected on the digital economy. So we are losing a lot of value. McKinsey's projected that if we are able to connect up to 75% of the population of this country to be actively engaged in the economy, we can easily add $88 billion to our GDP. We can do this in just 1 year. So Nigeria is looking for money. The country is literally broke. These are money that we are losing everywhere. $83 billion. That's a lot of money. So we need to find a way to close this infrastructure gap. Yes, there are issues around literacy, digital literacy, and even the education literacy. But I tell you this, that operating and the using of digital devices or being connected on digitally enabled ecosystem is an hands-on thing. These are things that you could learn, things you could figure out. I had people in my family who really didn't have up to basic primary school education, but who have digital device. And over time, they learned how to interact with digital device and do some useful things on these devices. So if we invest more in broadband expansion, if we invest more in driving down the cost of mobile phone technology, like making it smartphones, internet-enabled, readily accessible and affordable to our huge population, we are simply incentivizing the ecosystem. And this can scale up rapidly a lot of innovations that we have out there.
Let's talk about safety. This is us going on a tangent right now. Food safety, very, very important. I want to imagine that the average quick food service businessman or woman, just wants to do what they can to keep the lights on. And in some cases, we miss out the fine details. Even, the rest of us who are consumers of these, services, as it were, sometimes we forget, if we're all being very honest. So how do we, take into account that particular aspect, talking about the aspect of safety? How do we make sure that, yes, it might be convenient, yes, it might be accessible, and even in some cases very affordable? How do we make sure that in the bid to enjoy the aforementioned, we don't toss ourselves in harm's way? What are the mechanisms for, ensuring safety? Perfect example here would be some reviews I've seen online, out there by some netizens, detailing their account or their experiences of, botched services offered by some of these entrepreneurs, as he were, either in transit, by logistic companies, as he were, or even, even if it's not there, even if it's not from there, in some cases it's hard to determine where it's from, whether it's from the movers or from the businesses themselves. It's one problem or the other that can constitute a hazard health-wise. So how do we, make sure that, as I said earlier, we are not leaving out that aspect just because we want to enjoy convenience and accessibility?
That's one of the key challenges of transactions and then interaction on digital ecosystems. Sometimes it's an issue of what you order versus what you get. So I know you're familiar with that slogan. So yeah, the thing is that there is a need for more empowerment around the consumer. It's about the global north, particularly countries like USA's. The consumers are well empowered. That is, consumer reviews are taken with utmost importance. That's number one. And then secondly is the fact that when we unlock more opportunities in the sector, when we increase the number of players, both people providing the services and then people who purchase these services or who rely on these services, we unlock healthy competition. And then people understand that when your service is not good enough, then people can easily jump to another service provider. So this is also another way to also further help service providers to improve the quality of their services. I personally, part of my digital habit is I so much value reviews. I don't joke with independent reviewers. So when I'm trying to buy something from your platform, or I'm trying to transact, even when I'm buying something on the big established brands like Jumia, I first and foremost look at what are the reviews of people who have bought the same product. So customer review is key. Incentivizing the sector, opening up the sector, let me use another word, unlocking the sector for more players to create healthy competition, because this is what happens. When you unlock a space for competition, it drives innovation in packaging, innovation in safety, innovation even in quality, even innovation helps to drive down the price of these goods and services. So these are the things we need to do. We need to find a way to unlock the space for more healthy competition, for innovation in packaging, in safety, in consumer participation, even in what a brand is. So this is some of the things that we can do quickly, rapidly, to guarantee safety of some of the food that we have access to, that we consume through the digital platform.
Has changed. I call it a market of convenience, if you like. The psychographics has shifted. Before now, what we had were the conventional walk into a restaurant, buy what you want, go home, and all of that. But in the last couple of years, all of that has changed because of the growing population right now. There is a keen interest on convenience. I can't stress that word enough. Especially within the much younger population of the country, which is quite the dominant one, if you like. If you see them, there's a particular a tag that they're, referred to as. We're not going to go there. That's a conversation for another day. But these individuals, or these subsets, love and enjoy convenience. And because of that, a lot of things about them are driving various sectors of the market, whether it's the core technology, or whether it's in what we're talking about right now, food services, whether it's in education, whether in every sphere, basically, they essentially drive the market. Now, by this very token, how do we leverage on this change in psychographic to, galvanize other sectors of the economy. Let's shift a little bit away now. We will come back, but let's shift a little bit away from, quick food services, as you were. Let's look at other critical sectors of the economy. We're talking health. We know that we can bank from the comfort of our home, so that's in order. How about things like healthcare? How about things like, how about the local farmer, as you were, the smallholder farmer who perhaps is amongst the people you mentioned earlier who fall into the category of the subset who aren't particularly engaged or connected. So how do we spread this sort of reach, if you like, based on the current psychographic of the dominant population across various sectors of the economy?
We need more investments in education. So what this is going to do for us is when you invest more, and I'm not talking about the kind of education that is most obtainable in Nigeria today. I'm trying to be quite nice and then picky with my words. But I think that we need to invest more in our education that is market oriented, education that is productivity oriented. When we invest more in this kind of education, we help people to understand that there is no sector of the economy that is not important. That's one. Secondly, that there are opportunities everywhere. As long as you can bring in value to the space, then definitely you can be successful in any sector. So we need to invest more in education for people to understand that with value creation, even in healthcare, even in agriculture, you can get into that space and make a good living for yourself. And whatever your aspirations are or dreams are, it can be achieved in any space or in any sector. So that way we are literally helping the country to diffuse innovation, to diffuse our talent and skills across all the sectors of the economy. It will interest you that today in Nigeria, the highest contributor to our GDP is agriculture, followed by information technology. They talk about trade, manufacturing, then finance and insurance. So I am citing on nairametrics data here. So when you look at the disaggregation of value creation for the economy across this sector, it shows us how important all of these sectors are, not only oil and gas that most people are really obsessed with. So when we invest more in education, we unlock new opportunities. For example, there's been a lot of amazing use cases of technology happening in the agriculture space. You talk about people like Hello Tractor, talking about people like rural farmers, or the kind of innovation they are creating with AI use case in agriculture. It's just simply blow my mind, the things happening there. And a lot of people need to know and be aware of the possibilities across all the sectors of our economy. Technology is playing a key role in healthcare delivery in Nigeria today. Telemedicine is literally fast catching up and closing the gap in access to healthcare services in this country. So these are some of the conversations that we need to have with our education policy maker. The curriculum needs to change. Our education curriculum as of today is no longer competitive for 21st century. We need to review this curriculum. We need to reorient the curriculum away from certification, giving people certificates that they can boast of, to giving people the actual value in skills, in knowledge, in capacity to find themselves in their space, in their sector, and be able to create value. The economy responds to value creation, and not necessarily to paper certificate or titles, but to value creation. And these are the new conversations that we need to have.
Now, to follow that up, let's bring in the subnationals, authorities at the subnational level. How can they be actively part of this paradigm shift, to support, outfits in this particular industry? Talking about the quick food services industry, as you were, perhaps maybe, this is me spitballing, by the way, they could do that through the agri ministries or through other forms. What do you reckon?
Thank you for mentioning the subsector. Most times we overtly focus on federal government, and they call these guys some slack, and then they get away with a lot of things. I am very happy for one of the good things that has happened to Nigeria, particularly this year, is the local government autonomy. with the local government autonomy, a lot of good things can happen at the grassroots level, at the subnational level. Talking about food safety, in responsible countries, food safety, sanitation, and the primary healthcare are the responsibilities of the local government. So local government can create a system, a policy direction that will not stifle innovation or stifle businesses, and then create a kind of a standardized, a standard system that guarantees safety of services, safety of goods, that ensures that people get value for their money. This can happen at the local government level. Also, local government can create an enabling environment for better sanitation, for better healthcare services, or better education. There is no reason why we shouldn't have, with looking at the trend and the interest of young Nigerians, there is no reason why we should not have at least one innovation hub at every local government in this country. This is a very huge country. We have a very massive boarding young population. More than 75% of Nigerians are below the age of 30. So there is nothing stopping us from having one innovation hub, at least in every local government, heavily funded and supported by local government authorities. This is a place that people can go to get digital skills, technology skills, skills in businesses, where people can build up their innovations, their business, and then from there, transmit into the business world proper. These are some of the little things that the subnationals can do, particularly the local government. They get a lot of a budget that is more than enough to start this kind of simple, innovative development agendas. And then with this, people will pay back in taxes, in employment generation, in value creation. Our GDP is just way, way too low. It's still dismal for this population to have a GDP that is less than $500 billion. That is mediocrity, to put it nicely. We need to do things to wrap up our production. We need to do things to guarantee that there's an enabling environment for our young, vibrant population. Tell you this, if America or Europe has the population that we have today, they will do wonders with the world, because these are countries with aging population and they are still managing to stay competitive. So we have all that it takes to be on the commonwealth of nations that are doing very well. So we can do this. Subnationals can play critical, particularly the local government at this time. Maybe you guys need to do a section, particularly on local governments and how they can support development from the grassroots level. There's a lot of work that we need to do from that particular sector in this country.
Now let's go to the national level, talk about how they can be a part of this fantastic movement, so to speak. Now we know that this sector, small and medium enterprises sector, employs a lot of Nigerians, as you were, per count, and it also contributes. As a matter of fact, it produces, or it accounts for more than 50% of industrial employment, and also contributes approximately 48% of the country's GDP. Now, this is talking about SMEs, right? Now, how can the federal government be a part of this? One of the popular quick food services outfit in the city, that's Lagos, I think a couple of months ago, if I'm not particularly certain about the exact month, but not too long ago, secured seed funding to the tune of $2.5 million from some foreign investors. Seed funding, that is. Now, this is critical. Talking about seed capital for businesses to start off and perhaps to spread their operations. That particular outfit, by the way, is doing pretty well, or they are doing pretty well. So for them to have gotten that, it can tell you one thing, or it does tell you one thing, that they're doing something right, and the investors have seen the prospect in them and want to, be a part of it, be a part of their extension or the expansion, as the case may be. So to the federal level or the national level now, how can we be a part of this, either by way of incentivization, waivers, or even funding too, per se? We can talk about that now and rope in the fact that just last week, the MP see the CBN's MPC increased rates, and some experts are not very optimistic about the the future of investments in business, the near future of investments in businesses. Some of them say that they could be lean. So putting all of this in perspective, how can the federal government, play in this particular sector to, galvanize it?
So first is for me, I think one of the challenges the economy at this time is not even the exchange rate, but it has been the policy inconsistency and then the instability in the exchange rate regime. So one of the good things that the federal government can do for us to help the country is to show foreign exchange rate stability and then to show direction in terms of consistencies of policy merging with the actions of the government. Because most of the time, for you to attract FDI, the investors look at the investment environment, they look at the stability of the exchange rate, they look at the consistency of the government policy, and then they also consider the rule of law. But I talk about the first two things first, which is looking at the consistency of the policy of the government, and then also the stability of the exchange rate. This helps businesses to plan. It helps businesses to see the have projection. For everyone who brings money into your economy, into your country, they want to be able to say that by XYZ year, this is what we are getting out. So the instability creates uncertainty, which is a turn-off for most investment. So that's one. And then secondly is on the policy angle. There has to be consistency of actions of the government with the policy direction, because this is one way that the government can demonstrate commitment to their policy and at the same time to help the people to follow through. So we must depart from saying A and then doing B. It's kind of portrayed as a little bit unserious or as a very volatile investment environment. And then maybe in another section, we could talk a little bit about the implications of rule of law and the impact of the perception of rule of law on the economy. This also is a key factor. People want the guarantee that if I invest in David's Nigerian enterprises, and there's a dispute, investors want the confidence that they can go to a court and that they can seek redress. But they don't want a showmanship of strong men, whereby for me to get things done, I have to know somebody that knows somebody who can call somebody powerful to get things done. These are some of the attitudes that turn away investors. If we do these three things right, we will not even need to travel around the world begging investors to come. Investors are looking for opportunity. Investors are on private drive. Anywhere there is value, anywhere there's opportunity calling on them, they will rush there and invest. This is how the investment landscape works. We need better policy. We need policy consistency. We need exchange rate stability, whether high or low. It is a conversation for another day. The key issue here is stability. It has to be stable. It helps business protections. And then lastly, rule of law. Without the values, without the ethos of rule of law for the economy, some kind of investors will not come to your country when there is no guarantee that there is a court, there is a law, there's a system that says that if I do A, I get B. Then if I don't get B, I can ask a question within the ambit of the law and then get justice. So this is how business world works. When you put in these three pillars, then you are literally setting up your country, your economy for massive boom. These are the things we need to do to help the tech ecosystem in the food tech industry, and even the other side of the economy. They are interconnected. You do this for one sector, it has a ripple effect even on other sectors of the economy.
Right. Now, I'm going to, in some regard, agree with you in a manner of speaking, because the perception of rule of law in some regard is, well, as the saying goes, perception is proportional to reality. Perception is, sometimes stronger than reality, as you were. So by that very token, when people perceive that, they can actually, in your submission, seek redress, it becomes easier for certain things to happen, for certain things to become fluid as far as the business ecosystem is concerned and the economy at large. But let's, close on this note. During the course of our conversation, we've touched on our population. I hear people who say that we are overpopulated or we have a population problem. I personally disagree. And the reason is simple. If we had a population problem, the likes of India would not be existing. But, excuse me, the likes of China, I beg your pardon, would not be existing, because China is, if not at the moment, the most populated country in the world. They actually are, one of the leading economies of the world as we speak. So we don't have a population problem. However, we seem to, for some reason, have not been able to harness what we have by way of our population. We are the most populated youth nation in the world. We have the largest population of youth in the world, and as it stands, and just like you mentioned earlier, and this is me corroborating your remarks, 70%, that's over two-thirds, well over two-thirds of our population are under the age of 30. 42, on the other hand, percent are between the ages of 15, as it were, under the age of 15. Now, putting all of that into perspective, how can government at all levels, subnational and national, maximize this strength, if you will? Because, the old saying goes, is strength in youth. Because if you're looking to the people that are outside this bracket to make things happen, it might take longer than, when you have the people who have their strength and their wits about them doing the same thing. So how do they play in this, how do they maximize, rather, this gold mine, so to speak, that we have in strength in youth to be able to, actuate or to be able to stimulate the economy through all of what we have spoken about on the floor this morning?
Fantastic question. We don't have population problem. What we have is productivity problem. Our productivity is too low for our population. That is what the issue is. According to World Bank, our current human capital index, it's 0.4. What that simply means is that every child in Nigeria today, by the time they are adults, they will only be able to actualize 40% of their potential. That is, their earning capacity, their capacity to contribute to the productivity in the economy will only be actualized at best by only 40%. That is a very scary figure for anyone who cares about the future of this country. And why is this so? It's because of our very poor investment in the key human development pillars. Our investment is terrible in education. Our investment is very low in healthcare. Our investment is very low in food security in agriculture. Our investment is very low in agriculture. The government needs to invest more in education. The government needs to invest more in healthcare. We need to invest more in energy security. We need to invest more in agriculture. As a matter of fact, without energy security, without a vibrant education sector, we cannot attain food security. And then when you score zero, or when you score poorly on all of these key human development pillars, there is no way your human capacity index can be high. So that is what the issues are. Our HCI, Human Capital Index, is way too low. We are in the bottom 7 poorest countries in the world with human capital index. Every child you see today, this data says that by the time they are 25, by the time they are 30, they will only be able to actualize at best only 40% of their potential. That is a huge loss of value. With investment in education, with investment in healthcare, with investment in food security, we can change this narrative. And that's what we need to do. Population is not our problem. As a matter of fact, Africa generally as a whole, we are grossly underpopulated. When you look at our land size, when you look at our massive natural resources, when you look at the things that God has blessed this continent with, you realize that we are even underpopulated. Look at this. You can fit the whole of China, 1.4 billion people, the whole of India, 1.6 billion people, the whole of Western Europe, the whole of America, you can fit this whole country and their population into Africa. This is how massive we are in terms of land size. Not just only the land size, there is nothing good natural resources that this nation, this continent is not blessed with. We have more than enough resources. But as we know in economics, in economic development, natural resources does not translate to economic development for the citizens. It is quality of leadership. It is intentional people representation. It is intentional investment in people capacity building that brings about development. So we need to invest in things that can help us to increase our productivity. Like we said in the course of this talk, our GDP below $500 billion, it's way too low. We shouldn't be doing anything less than $3 trillion with our population, with the potentials of this country. We should literally be doing $3 trillion GDP economy. That is what we should be. That is what the blessing and the destiny of this nation, that is what it should be. So we need to invest in the pillars of development that can bring about a higher human capital index. If we do this in the next 5-10 years, we are going to be in that committee of nations where the people are prosperous. And that's what we should do.
Thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning, Mr. John Babadara. Many thanks. Mr. John is a development expert, co-founder and managing partner, Ace Agritech. Many thanks indeed for joining us on the program this morning on Market Insight. Thank you. That's been Market Insight this morning. We've been talking about leveraging technology to stimulate critical sectors of the economy using food services, particularly quick food services, as a case study. And our guest, Mr. Babadara, has spoken about a lot of things, talking about infrastructure gaps that needs to be filled, substantial investments, being made, federal government policies, and of course, harping also on the subnational level, saying that seeing as they are closer to the people, that they are in pole position to make these wheels turn, as the case may be. Of course, he spoke about the rule of law and, of course, human capital development, which we have fallen short of over the decades. So these and many more are critical factors that could help in galvanizing the economy, and of course factoring in technology, which of course is the new gold, if I do say so myself, and how this particular case study of the food services industry, the quick food services industry, has been better off because of the convenience, the accessibility, and in some cases affordability of it therein. So we're hoping that all of that put together would continually spur the sector, the critical sectors, not just the food sector alone, but other critical sectors of the economy. And, we, as Nigerians, will be better off for it. That's Market Insight this morning. But a quick look before we go at the Forex market. We've got the Naira trading to the US dollar at 1,690 Naira. To the pound sterling, still on the official market at 2,299 Naira. To the euro, 1,918 Naira. Elsewhere in the parallel market, it's 1,700 Naira. That is the dollar-Naira exchange. The dollar-pound exchange is 2,280 Naira. And of course, the euro, that's 1880. That's 1,818 Naira. That's what it looks like on the Forex market this morning. Many thanks again for watching SOUQ News' Market Insight for a midweek edition. Do join us for the news update at the top of the hour. Sports at SOUQ Sports, that is, at 1 p.m. and later on at 3 p.m. for the major news bulletin. That's News Hour, of course. My name is David Chiedu. Have a wonderful rest of the day.